to invite the Parks Department to come up and present to the board.
We have a projector.
How are you, Brett?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you tonight. I wanted to go last month, but Jack insisted he go first. So here we are. Better late than never, they say. On the first slide there, we have our mission and vision statement. Most of those words were taken from the community marketing survey that Canada did a few years ago. Parks and Recreation will help Smithville thrive by providing safe recreational and leisure opportunities to the citizens, enhancing all interests and behavior, and provide the benefits of recreation and leisure, such as fun, sense of community, healthy lifestyle, and leadership. The vision statement of the Parks Department: Parks and Recreation helps Smithville thrive to give back to the community by providing safe, affordable, and inclusive recreation and leisure opportunities within the proximity of Smithville's natural beauty. The next slide has our organizational chart. You can see here we're slated to add a position halfway through this year, park maintenance position. And then we've also will add some recreational seasonal workers. Those will be our site supervisors, which will facilitate keeping with game schedules and things of that sort, getting T-ball teams off the field so that the next T-ball teams can come on the field, stuff like that. We're looking at possibly high school age people for that, or possibly retirees. It's a pretty flexible schedule, evening and weekend work, you might say. The history of our youth programs.
Well, back up a second.
Yes.
In your notes, Joe's been here 31 years.
31 years. Yes, I believe I
to recognize him and appreciate the service.
I have given him the unofficial title of park historian. When he started working for the Parks Department, or for the city, there was not really a Parks Department. So it's changed a lot in the time he's been here.
Well, please extend our appreciation.
Noted. As we get into our youth programs, we partnered with Liberty Parks and Rec prior to the 2016 sports season. They offered online signups, created teams, created and managed the game schedule, as well as handle communication and contracting the officials for soccer, baseball, t-ball, softball. Since we hired Matt at the end of last June, this is a step in a direction to kind of bring everything in-house. We've added tennis lessons, a volleyball clinic, as well as a soccer clinic this spring. We're trying that for some of the younger kids. Something else we've done is we've really worked to establish a relationship with the high school athletic department. Coach Reed, the high school soccer coach, came and spoke to our soccer coaches meeting last fall, and our coaches are parent volunteers. Some of them didn't necessarily grow up playing soccer, so they aren't sure what drills they should do or where to put players on a field. He was able to provide some direction on that. Something else we did as part of that collaboration was we offered an officials info session. One of their needs, as well as all sport leagues, is a lack of officials. And so we kind of planned an event. Alderman Chevalier, you were there. Wasn't hugely attended, but it's something we at least got the word out there and promoted, and had a couple of different organizations come together. The Mid-Con officials and the Greater Kansas City Officials Association had some representatives there to talk about what it meant to be an official and maybe gain some interest, and that will open up hopefully some more local folks in the area to possibly officiate some high school events or our events in the future. Well, there you go. So that I see us doing an event like that again. Matt's works as a soccer official at the high school level, so I think that's a good circle for us to be in as well. As we continue to move forward, what we're working on is improving communication. We want to be able to register folks online, create a schedule, create teams, and mainly communicate, not only through email but text messaging. Text messaging is something that will relieve us from having to source multiple rainouts, communication at various levels. That's something that we're looking for in our software, and we have noticed increased communication even in the fall. We want to continue to offer quality customer service, great programs. I've attached, I don't know if you can see, we've got some feedback there from our fall soccer. 100% of respondents said that they would be signing up again. So that's good to get that. Adult programs. We added adult programs fall 2017, last fall, slow pitch softball. We offered 2 divisions, men's league and co-rec. We ended up with 11 teams, which equaled 144 individual participants. Spring registration now open. Shameless plug. Feel free to find that on our website. We already have three teams signed up for the spring session already, so that's great. All 3 of those were teams last year. So it's good to see that. We've also offered adult co-rec volleyball. That has 1 week left in the first winter session. We have opened up a second session of that. Those games are played at Smithville High School. We have 45 individual participants with that in 6 teams. I think we've got one team in that so far. Community events. This is an area we're really looking to expand. Cornhole for a Cause was a bags tournament held down at the courtyard. We partnered with Shop with a Cop and Chops Barbecue to offer a tournament where fierce competition was held for an awesome trophy. And as a side effect of that, we gathered food for local food pantries. So we've got some pictures there of the food that we collected, and Matt distributing that food to our local food pantries, and they were ecstatic to get the donations. We will definitely be doing this again, mainly because we have the boards, so we won't have to build those again. We have those, and looking at possibly maybe some leagues or something like that as we expand our offerings. Something else we have is the free outdoor movie night. We've partnered with Danielle Wilson, who's been doing those as an individual the last few years. Provide free outdoor movies, and we've partnered with her. Hopefully we'll be able to reach more people through advertising as well as sponsorships.
I have a question on that, Brett.
Yeah.
Who's responsible for getting the electricity set up for that? Does Danielle do that, or does somebody with city staff take care of getting everything hooked up for the movies?
That is actually where Chops comes into that. He owns the screen and sound system.
Okay, but where's it plugged in at? Is it?
I believe it's plugged in up at the stage.
Right on the stage on those outlets.
So the outlets are already on and everything. I always
Right.
wondered how, if there was somebody they had to turn those
Right.
off and on. So, okay, thank you.
And the licensing rights to movies, that's still on there.
Yeah, that's where the sponsorship comes in. Yeah, we go through there's 1 or 2 companies you have to go through, and so we've got the list kind of pared down, and part of what Danielle wanted to keep doing was our online polls, so you'll see a lot of that on our social media. So that'll start up here in March already, so that's good. She does a great job with that event.
Now that goes from the third Saturday from March through October.
Through October, that's correct.
I'm assuming except for August.
Except for August, just like in the past, that's correct. Yes. Okay, as we look to the future for our programs, I want to continue to improve customer service and communication. Ways we're doing this, we got surveys going out after every event, personal emails, especially to coaches, so that they know how much they're appreciated. Our league success relies on parent volunteers, as well as timely responses. I think this is why we got such great feedback in the fall, is because we were able to handle the communications in-house, so people got quick responses. So hopefully we can maintain our good retention rates. We also want to expand our programs. Summer camps, we've got a lot of options there. Basketball, bike safety course, I see that, something like that coming out. Additional community events and additional sports opportunities. A lot of those come from the survey results we get. That's something we'll ask in our surveys. What would you like to see us do? For the adult programs, we would like to continue to add more. This year we're looking at doing 3 sessions of softball. We'll do the 2 volleyball sessions, cornhole, hopefully basketball. That was one that didn't work the first time we tried it. Didn't have anyone sign up for a 3-on-3 basketball tournament. That doesn't mean we won't ever try it again. We'll just give it another shot. Maybe when the weather's nice, do it outside. Second thing we'd like to do with the adult programs are implement health and wellness classes. This is something that most Parks and Rec organizations do, whether it's working with possibly St. Luke's Hospital to do wellness luncheons or something like that at some point, or working with Kim Davis up at the wellness coordinator up at Smithville School District to increase participation in our programs, therefore resulting in healthier staff and faculty up there at the school district. That's something, a partnership we're working on, as well as fitness in the park classes. That's a huge area of growth, I think, for us as people are looking to get their fitness on. All righty, next section, park maintenance. The park maintenance staff consists of myself, 2 full-time workers, seasonal workers as available. We maintain 308 acres of parkland. On the graph on these sheets, on this sheet, you can see our acres of parkland per 1,000 roughly reflects 3 times what other agencies with our population density have. On the middle graph, you look at operating expenditures per acre, we're spending approximately 72% as much as other agencies that have our population density. When we're talking per acre, graph 3, operating expense per capita, we're looking at approximately 71% of other agencies with our similar population density. So we're covering more ground, spending less money.
Thank you for this data, and I think you covered some on 10 too.
Yes.
What's the source of this? So as we kind of look to benchmark, and
This is our NRPA, National Recreation and Parks Association. It's posted on our website, actually, and Dan and I have worked to refine these numbers last year and then this year. This is last year's report. We filled out the information for this year's report, but haven't got it back yet. Okay, so when that comes out, you will get it.
very good, thank you.
Yes. So, and again, the better information we put in, the better information we get out.
Yep. Garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah, right. So that's something that we've really worked. It got a lot better last year when Dan and I sat down and sharpened a pencil. Diving right into that table on the next slide. Let's look at line 9, full-time equivalents per 10,000 population. On the last graphs, we can see that we're covering 3 times the ground. If we look at our full-time equivalents per 10,000 population, we're doing it with half the people as other agencies with our population density. So that's a fun fact when you consider we're mowing 83.2 acres per week.
So what are you trying to say?
Nothing. Nothing else. Just information. Our mowing operations consist of 83.2 acres, which we mow weekly. An acre is 43,560 square feet.
Ballpark, what's the mowing season, would you say?
Depends on the weather. Thanks for asking.
We done a lot in the past couple months.
And again, and when I say we mow it per week, that's if we only mow it once. When it rains and we're out there mowing every 3 days, especially on our ball fields, that number goes up. To put acres into perspective, 83.2 acres is roughly 73 football fields. And remember, football fields don't have trees, light poles, fences, campsites, power pedestals. You know, it's hard for me to remember the last mow because you never know it's your last. It's just when it's this dry, it's literally different every year. We're out at our soccer fields forming up for a sidewalk from the new parking lot. We can still see our lines. That's how dry it's been this winter.
I mean, just as an estimate.
As an estimate, you're looking at usually April through October.
You said you mowed in November this year.
It just really depends. It really depends. I've been mowing for a long time, and it's normal is getting stranger and stranger. just with the springs we have and wet and dry. Anyway, sanitation, restrooms and trash. That's not the sexy part of the department, but it's something we do. Restrooms will be checked on a daily basis.
You just check them once a day?
Depends. The ones in the campground get checked a lot more because Betty's right there, as well as the other two in Smith Fork. I think she keeps a closer eye on because she stays in the park. So there's, the restroom at Heritage, at least once a day, as time allows. Especially if there's an event, we definitely check it the day of the event. And last year during peak usage, we did run weekend coverage.
You count Betty as one of your...
No, because she's a contract employee.
So, like if there's a big ball tournament or something, are we checking more frequently? I know
Well, that's
sometimes we kind of run out of toilet paper and other things out there.
right. Well, like the 150th, we had a person on staff. Cross country meets, we usually have a person on staff. The first cross country meet of the year, Betty's here, so she covers that. The second one last year, I think they had district meet. We had someone here the whole time for that.
So does she check the one up in the playground at Smith Fork? Because I know
Yeah.
I quit taking my grandkids up there because the restrooms desired a lot as far as cleaning goes.
And that's like one of the big complaints that I get is the bathrooms. 'Cause, I mean, you say that it's once a day, but I mean, it just seems like the complaints that I get, the frequency of them, they don't correlate with that. So I mean, I'm just curious, how do you guys log that these are being checked? Is there something that you're keeping track of so you know how many times you're touching these bathrooms?
Well, again, I know we're touching them because we're down there. We're in them. That's something that I have in here, ways to vend them. In calling around, I've talked to other parks departments on what their schedule is. Generally, it's a once a day. Some are twice. Others limit access to the restrooms. That's something I got. Kansas City will do that in their central division. If there's a shelter house with a restroom nearby, that restroom is only open if the shelter house is reserved. So by limiting access, we've noticed more vandalism happening downtown simply because it's open the other 6 months a year when the others aren't. Okay, it's hard for us. We don't have the manpower to stand at a bathroom and be there at all times.
We just bought a new police car. Can we park an old one down there?
Great idea. Increase police patrol would be the other side.
Presence makes a difference, right?
Is there a way that we can set something up on that, like report a concern, where they can report a bathroom issue, and that way you get texted out and they can go and take care of the needs?
Yeah, and I think there is a Parks and Playgrounds report of concern there already.
Does that get utilized as well?
We have, at one point, we had security. This was before my time. Chief, we were talking about the security cameras down at Heritage Park. Were not being used when I
Even here in
started.
the bathrooms too.
What's that?
We talked about having a camera here.
We talked about it.
We talked about it, right.
We were talking about it right around the same time that Platte City had their camera issue with the cats. Remember that? Yeah. A lot of backflow on that, as they say. So we haven't made that step, but performance, I think Chief can attest. He was here when we had the previous camera.
We had cameras, this was when the bathrooms were new, with what was cutting edge for that time, this little VCR, that was at that time. We had them there for 4 years. We got video of a couple people coming and going. We were never able to identify anybody off those videos. The video will tell you, this is the image of the cushion that was there. It won't tell you what happened inside that room, because I'm not going to recommend you put a camera inside the restroom ever. And I'll give you my name on that. And it's the same thing we run into with just any surveillance camera anywhere. Once I have an image of somebody, that doesn't tell me who it is. You have to find somebody willing to say, that's so-and-so.
Don't point at me.
So, we got it there for 4 years.
Did you have a lot of vandalism still going on?
At that time, it was addressed on a regular basis and talked about, because at that time, that was the new restroom in town. It was when they took moved the caboose and built that one room, so they raised it up, they had everything. So that's when that was the new one in town. And run through the same stuff we're shooting here.
After talking to folks at Kid City, I'm not sure they're going to hold vandalism, but again, they're opening access. Ours is wide open. Yeah. 24/7. So, a log and stuff is something we can look into, or, that's not, I know how much time we spend there, and every day it's the rounds of trash, damage assessment when necessary, cleanup. So
I
that's something.
appreciate that, but I think a couple of us have shared that doesn't kind of jive with what we're seeing, I've been at this Smith Horse bathroom several times with, baseball out there, and I try to limit my time in there, I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the question, is what can we do to help assist and ensure that it's A, not vandalized, and B, you've got the resources to take care of it appropriately?
Call more people. More staff.
But if we're hitting it once a day, then
I think our
that
bigger
should do it.
Yeah, it may be even changing the time of day, but I think the bigger thing is usually this is handled by seasonals if we can. They don't do the repairs, but they do the trash and the clean checks. How many seasonals do you get to do that on average each year?
Right now, it's not handled by our seasonals.
Do the bathrooms have a log? They'll come back and do it?
No.
I mean, that's something, that would be a way to,
Something, we could.
yeah, like you see at a grocery store or
A way for us to track vandalism also. As far as incidents, the number per month or whatnot. Something to look at.
yeah, and that's,
But
I think
other than
the
that,
bigger
limiting
thing is-
access, increasing patrols, I think are two possible.
And
Put some signage or something out there that says if you see an issue, do this report, call number, or fill out this form, something like that, just so they can know, hey, all right.
Maybe right back to the bathroom,
Yeah.
Big bold letters.
yeah, and those are standard signs as well.
Brett, what do you see as your biggest need in your department right now? More bodies, more equipment, more...
Right. Evidently,
All the above.
yes, it's
Now,
hard
keep
to
in mind,
narrow it
several of
down.
us here are fiscal conservatives, and the mayor's
It's hard to get down.
reelected, so-
Right. I mean, let's get through what we're looking at, and we can talk. Campground operations. We're looking at the repair. The campground is 30 years old now, so we're looking at 10 to 20 water repairs 4 feet underground every year. Campground electrical systems, some have been upgraded. We'll address those in the next slide. So that's good news. We've made some repairs in the last couple of years, or upgrades down there. Hopefully that can continue. If we look at revenue, in this sheet also, you'll notice our revenue is a little above those other agencies also, and that is, obviously, it's because of the campground generating that revenue for us every single year. You'll see those on the top of that. Revenues per capita are higher, and our revenues to total operating expense is higher than other park agencies with our population density. So diving into the campground numbers, looking at the number of sites that are occupied, occupancy rates, you see when campground sites, when the sites were upgraded, we did have a jump in occupancy. So that's more of the rigs are 50 amp rigs. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about upgrading. Rather than just 30 amps, we had 10 50 amp only sites, and then the rest were 30 amp only. The 24 we upgraded a couple years ago have the 30 or the 50 amp. So they'll take any kind of rig out there now. So that's something that we would like to complete that. We got, like I said, about 47 sites to go.
So on line number, I don't have Jack's classes, so on line number 4, total tax expenditure per capita, what all are you counting in that number? Because I tried to run that today, and for FY18, I got $61.14 per capita.
I'll have to look back at that and see what is included in that.
That's through the NRPA, so we'll have to figure out how they evaluated it. We do a survey on the, maybe you can explain
It's an internet, right, it's filling in, internet survey, and so I can look that up.
Yeah, and I was going total parks budget.
Right, a lot of them exempt the capital improvement. That may be it. Off the top of my head, that's what I'm thinking it is. They don't take the capital improvement or your CIP project. It's only the operation. Okay. I'll get back to you on that. For sure. We've covered most of the maintenance and repair slide here with the vandalism. We've got electrical repairs ongoing in the campground, plumbing repairs. We have repaired, we had some plumbing issues just due to the age of the bathrooms out there at Smith Fork. So we've replaced about 17 different stools, plumbing in and out of those. We performed that this fall after we shut everything down. We got some vandalism pictures there. You see those? They look
I got
pretty.
a couple more if you need to.
They look nasty, but they smell worse. Fire. The last one is fire. That fire seems to be a thing we run into once in a while. So, that's something to keep in mind there too.
You get the playground equipment there at Heritage, and
Right, 20 years old, limping it along. That's
So-
something that
in a
that-
floodplain.
what's the cost? What's the recommendation?
I have that in a future slide. The cost is sky's the limit.
No.
Page 5,
Yeah, slide 10.
Yep, there it is. That picture there is a picture of Challenger Park, which is at 152, and Platte Purchase. You can see that from 152. Went out there and took some pictures, got a hold of people that put that in. It's an inclusive playground. The servicing cost $120,000. The equipment cost $140,000.
So that's the one where
So that's an example. Is what,
any kid is playing this on that.
Yeah.
right. It's inclusive. Right, and that will be, and this, the playground replacement will be something that will go through the planning commission. It will definitely involve the community as far as what they want to see and
So along that lines, I know Liberty had a service group come forward and say they wanted to help sponsor one of these.
an inclusive playground. That's correct, yes.
And, you know, I think we can put that word out if someone wants to help partner and help pay for it, you know, to help build one of these, I think that'd be great. And my concern with Heritage is, you know, I got called on a vandalism issue and went down and, you know, it was pretty clear the carvings in there had been there for a while, you know. Could we just keep a better eye on it, because some of that stuff, you know, kids shouldn't be seeing.
Sure, yes. So, you know, something else on here with this playground equipment that goes on, as well as the playground equipment, we got that road out at Smith Fork. We got the parking lot done. We ran into some base issues. That's something else on the list as far as ongoing projects. Hopefully, we're in a position to get that wrapped up.
We have a fix for the base failures that
Right.
occurred with the 72
When it
trucks.
comes to the playground, do you do like an annual, when the season's kind of wrapping up?
Right. There are high-frequency inspections, low-frequency inspections. When we're out there getting trash, we try and look for missing parts, get up on the equipment. I mean, I don't know that we see everything, but the purpose of a high-frequency inspection is to look for obvious safety issues. Right, and those are gone through weekly.
The park out, or the playground equipment out at Smith Forks,
Yes.
I know that, whatever that,
Poured-in-place rubber safety
yeah.
servicing, yes.
I noticed, is there a way to repair any of that, or what happens when
Possibly.
some of that comes up?
We
'Cause
did
I've
some-
noticed there's some areas out there.
It still performs. We had it drop tested for our own peace of mind. It still performs. It doesn't look as good. There are probably some options we can do as far as capping that. That will make it look better.
I'm just thinking of little kids catching where it's ripped up, you know, and
Right.
falling and stuff. I mean, it's soft where they're gonna fall, but still, it's a tripping hazard. So, I was just curious how that could be repaired.
Yeah, we're looking at an option maybe for an overlay on that.
Okay.
Something.
Speaking of kiddos, I know baby changing stations is one that I hear frequently. I know they aren't all that expensive, but
No, definitely not. We have them in the campground right now, and it hasn't been an issue. Vandalism has not been an issue. That's something I think we should look at, potentially adding to our other parks. In checking around where they are and where they aren't, I think that's something that, am I looking dry?
Except for on the forehead.
and a little moist.
You think your main concern with those will be
Right, right. And mostly,
here to help, we're not
mostly
here to-
fire, honestly, because it's plastic. But, you know, even if they get torn up, replacement isn't
Yeah, the plastic ones aren't that bad.
right, a couple $100 for replacement. And we just need to verify we can still have ADA in our bathrooms.
Yeah, if we have an ADA bathroom, those would violate the ADA stuff.
If they
If
protrude.
if we have a 60-inch radius and that's it,
Right.
you can't put one in that bathroom because then it no longer is ADA compliant. But not all our bathrooms are, so that gets a lot easier.
Right. Next slide here is something separate from the city. It's the Smithville Parks and Rec Foundation. One of the three pillars of the NRPA, National Recreation and Park Association, is social equity. So this is something that the staff of the Parks Department has started in an effort to increase accessibility to our programs, as well as potentially someday fund park improvements. So this is a not-for-profit organization we're trying to get established now. If that's something that any of you are interested in, we can talk after the meeting or any time.
Donations accepted?
That's the goal. All right, we've got the revenue here, the two notes on the budget. The $17,000 last year was hail damage. The $34,000 was a insurance, about half of it was an insurance claim, and the other half was a surplus equipment, thereabouts.
Was that the old mower and a trailer and?
Yeah, the old 580 trailer backhoe. Gosh, freed up some room in our shed, so that was nice. Got rid of that. And then on the department budget by priority, that was something Dan made. Some of those, again, as we go into the future of our priority-based budgeting, we'll get those more streamlined, more accurate. Something that looking back was just kind of an estimate.
So with that, we'll pick on Dan for a moment. We won't really pick on you. As has been noted, the FY16 numbers that we had back a couple months and what we have now look a little different. Can you help walk us through?
Don't mind that at all. I'm going to bring out the post if you guys don't mind, so I can kind of tell you guys what I'm looking at. Take about 2 minutes, walk you guys through here. This is the post from last night or this morning, something like that. I'll talk you through kind of an unimportant thing to start with, but the September 25th, 2017, we had a Board of Aldermen work session meeting, of which the budget was not even on the agenda. The first reading of the fiscal year 18 budget was on September 19th. The second reading was on October 3rd. Regardless of those dates, these numbers that are in this column right here are pulled from the fiscal year 18 presentation that I did. Okay.
In October?
It's hard to tell because they're the same.
Okay.
For both the first reading and the second reading, it's the same numbers. So you can't really tell. This column right here is the data that you have for fiscal year 16 on that sheet. With one little note I'll make, the total on the post came out to $544,010 and 80 cents. It's actually $544,010.84. It's a little nitpicky there, but I just wanted to clarify that because I wanted to acknowledge that the total between these numbers and the total between these numbers is off $45. That is an error on my part. We had an account that we spent $45 out of in fiscal year 16, and other than that, we had never used that account. I omitted it when I was doing the fiscal year 18 presentation, so that's why that number is $45 less than that number, the totals. Okay?
What's the total on that again?
$544,010.84. Now, I do want to talk a little bit more about this because let's assume, let's take into account that I omitted that $45, and let's just assume that these two numbers are the same on the bottom now, okay? When I did the fiscal year 18 budget, I developed these numbers. Let me back up a little bit. I had a number of $544,000 that we expended out of the Parks and Rec budget, which was a line item budget. We were moving to priority-based budgeting, so I had to take that $544,000 and somehow tell you guys or show you guys how that $544,000 broke down into our new priorities. It was an estimate. I did my best guess at that time, came up with these numbers right here. When the departmental reviews came about, one of the items that was requested was 5 years of fiscal year budgets in priority-based budgeting format. When that was requested, I said, okay, I can't go back 5 years, or I don't think it's right to go back 5 years and do them all based on estimates. I have to come up with some better numbers here. So now I took the $544,000 and I actually looked at each individual line item, said, what did we spend out of that? Okay, let me come up with a better idea of which of those priorities that money actually went to. So I took those estimated numbers that I did on the budget and I recalculated them with a better, more accurate understanding of what priorities they really belong to. So this post is actually correct that none of these items match. I refined all of them. In total, minus the $45, in total they're the same, but they went from estimated numbers to more accurate. They're still not perfect, but they're better in my opinion. Okay? Now when we get to the bottom part of this, it's a couple more notes we need to make. These numbers are now pulled from a document that's on our city website. That is the document that I posted after you approved the first amendment to the fiscal year 18 budget. At that point in time, we were not done spending money out of the fiscal year 17 budget. So if you look at this total, you get 682,000. When you look at the total on your sheet for fiscal year 17, you get 694,000. That increase of 12,000 is the last bit of 2017 that we finished up. Okay, so that's why it increased. And then again, same thing, these are estimates. These are more refined numbers after I went through line by line and tried to divide those numbers out better. So again, these don't match, and it increased 12,000 because we had $12,000 more of bills that we needed to pay for that year. So now I take fault for that $45. It's something I should have caught back when we did the budget. I just missed it. And then I didn't tell you guys that I was going back to these numbers and refining them. I didn't do it. I didn't see it didn't jump into my mind as something that I should alert you guys to. I just moved forward trying to be a little bit more accurate. So does that answer what you needed to
That's
answer?
kind of follow-up question. That's kind of hard. So I know the auditors were in doing their work. Is the switch from line item budgeting to priority-based budgeting, has that been an issue for them as they've kind of gone through, or they've been able to work through? I know
everything that they've audited was still under the line item process. I sat down with our head auditor, who was the same head auditor from last year, Harold, and I kind of informed him that we were taking on this priority-based budgeting. It doesn't really look anything like it did before, and he seemed to not have any issue with the way that we were handling it. We'll see next, January when they actually come and look at it for the first time, but they didn't. It's not like they stepped back and said, "Whoa, you can't do that" or anything. They didn't. They said, "Oh, well, looks okay to us."
Thank you, and my comment was clean audits for the past several years. So.
I may want to add one additional clarification. I think he mentioned it, but Dan went from fiscal 13 all the way to fiscal 17 and did the same extrapolation on each of those years, so that or he did not do the extrapolation. He actually went and pulled the data and put it in there instead of doing the extrapolation percentage. So it wasn't a short feat to do it. This is the second time he's done it. He's got.
Yeah, for the record, I did the development department only last month. Mm-hmm. I did the Parks and Rec only this month. So every month I'm just refining another department's numbers. I don't remember who's next, please.
Streets next.
Thank you, Dan.
I do have some more questions for Brad. I guess this is just my opportunity to talk to you. I live from Diamond Crest, and we have that little walking path behind us. Doesn't appear that gets mowed very often, so where's that in the schedule for mowing?
Right, the unimproved parks aren't on a regular mowing cycle. That is something that is done with a brush cutter as time allows.
Okay, because I know I went back and I walked through all of that, and I know it is used, so, because there's a path through there, so I was just concerned of why it's not mowed more often. But my bigger concern is the access to that
Wall, yes.
in our subdivision. I've lived there for 17 years, and it's looked like this every year. So who's responsible for that? Is that Parks to get that fixed?
Right, yes, that park area, that is the access to the Diamond Crest Park area. As that area develops, hopefully that park will be developing in the near future, we can address that wall, decide whether to go back with a curb. We're talking to neighbors there. Everyone has an idea on what the proper fix should be. That, again, will be something that goes to the Planning Commission when we develop that. Hopefully we can get some connectivity for that trail behind Diamond Crest as well.
Well, we'll have to talk about it, because I think it should have been fixed before now, even though the rest of it's not developed.
Sure.
To me, that's a hazard. So that's all I have. Thank you.
So, in preparation for this, I asked Amanda Means to kind of come up with a list of things that, she thought that she would talk to some folks, other folks, because she deals with sports and such. She went to be a list
did, yes.
So I haven't seen you respond to that. And I asked that we, have all these questions answered.
Oh, well, I must have misinterpreted. I told Brett he needed to be here to answer each and every question you guys had about that or whatever else. So I didn't have him put it in writing.
I would have the answers.
No, I
So that
have-
I
Oh.
would be prepared for this meeting. To date, I haven't seen anything, so.
Okay.
Well, that's on me. I apologize. I was working under the assumption that tonight was the night to answer those questions.
I mean, we walked through some of them, definitely that family crest is an issue.
Right.
But, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here. One of the things that that Amanda's relayed to me many times was about scheduling with the coaches, having proper postings, public postings, so that people know when these meetings are supposed to happen.
Right, that's all addressed, right, that's the facility use policy, which is a policy that was approved, I believe, 2 years ago by the Board of
How
Aldermen.
can we get that fixed so that we can make sure that coaches are getting more opportunities to schedule fields? They have, and we can have more dates. Apparently there's some dates you're not allowed to have or something.
Well, in part, it would be software. The other aspect, we can cancel our rec programs because we use the fields for our rec programs. So the more days associated with it, I would say excuse me, I shouldn't have done this, but the current policy identifies for tournaments and leagues other than
Tournaments and games.
Other than city stuff, gets a special annual meeting. After that meeting, thereafter, the coaches or whoever, anybody can come in and start reserving for whatever reason they want. We had that annual meeting in year one, and we had 5 or 6 folks show up for it, all of which were wanting to reserve practice times. So ultimately, from our perspective, okay, well, that's first come, first serve following the coaches meeting for games and tournaments. Since we didn't have any games or tournaments, it was a meeting where kind of we got an idea of what those coaches were going to do. Since then, we've never had any inquiries about somebody wanting to post a tournament.
Well, actually, we did, Jack. Last fall, we were approached by the Emerald Soccer Club. They wanted to do a tournament to raise money for Edwin Mains. We didn't let them reserve the fields, though. We gave it to them for free, actually, as a way to be a part of that event. So that's, to my knowledge, the only tournament we've had at our soccer fields.
Yeah, and leagues or anything on the
Right.
baseball, softball
Right.
as
I
well.
think there's been some practices there at different times.
So if you had recreational soccer practice that could handle a lot of the scheduling and work that out, how much would that resolve?
Well, it would resolve some. Again, the issue that has been ongoing with the soccer fields and the facility use issue is that we don't know what our field inventory is until our registrations are complete. Meaning, based on the city recreational numbers, that determines the inventory of fields. And so we can't rent out 6 U8 fields if we know we're only going to have 2. You follow me? And again, when the facility use policy was approved, that was the drive was recreational sports in Smithville.
On the main house.
Right. That's what led us down the road of getting into the recreation business, was recreation sports should have first crack at the city-owned facilities. And then the competitive teams, organizations can come in and fill in the cracks once the recreational programs schedule is set.
So,
Does that make sense?
no, absolutely. So from a percentage, how much back and forth do you have? Is it like 40% city, 60% competitive, or is it?
I don't think it's that high. We're at right in the last 2 years, probably right around 300, a little over 300 reservations for athletic field use. Again, it's baseball fields, soccer
How
fields.
many of it is isolated just for city functions?
Well, it's hard to say because when we use it, we don't make a reservation for it. We just block the time. You know what I mean? And again, we're talking about volunteer parent coaches, so that when they pick the practice time, that
So do we track that going forward? Just block them in
Yeah.
different colors even?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it might be justification to let competitive teams do it, you know, or the other way around.
To do what?
To do all the schedule and handle all the sport.
And that's ultimately, if we want to go back there, that's where we were in 2015. The board at that time directed us specifically to get away from that and to bring it in-house. So
Well, it'd be interesting.
that's when we brought Liberty on, because we didn't have staffing levels to do it. We had to bring somebody in to do that.
Well, again, if we knew that the city was blocking out 10% of the fields and the rest, 90% of it was the competitive teams, well, then there's a lot of justification. Hey,
Yeah.
Well, and keep in mind, a lot of the reservations, it's walk-on uses there too, as far as if you want to go have a pickup game at a family reunion or something, we don't lock up our fields, and that's one thing I like, that our fields are free and open to the public. So yeah, there's practices that go on when no one else is using the field, and that's perfectly acceptable.
But yeah, the data acquisition of the numbers, because usually it's for baseball, softball, it's 3 or 4 nights for practice going in and then games.
Right.
Do you recall the reasoning for the board to go that way at the time?
It was primarily baseball, softball stuff, and it was driven by a couple of aldermen, particularly frustrated in that scenario with a contract that league had with the city to do the mowing, and then they were subleasing it out to, yeah.
I think it'd be great to track going forward what's city versus competitive and what's youth versus adult. So I tried to run some ballpark numbers, and it looked like about $122 per participant in spending in FY16, and somewhere around $159 in 17. But if you break that down to youth versus adult for the 17 numbers, it ballparked about $139 for youth and about $247 for adult.
Right.
So, it's almost $100 more per adult. I think it's great, but, at that cost, it would be good for this board to know if that continues to be that number.
Yeah, and we're just now starting to see the sizes increase. We're
We're planning
hoping,
to see down, see how it grows.
right.
Right.
And we may be able to back into some of the data as it relates to, we know how many reservations we've had for baseball, softball, and soccer. Well, let's go square fields versus soccer fields. We can break them up that way. Baseball, softball, I don't think we can break them up that
And
way.
I've got time blocks in there as far as what.
But we can
is
get
that
a
right?
pretty good estimate of what we've done over the last several years, using some of our, we know we blocked off 2 nights a week or 3 nights a week or
Right.
whatever it is, so we know how many slots that was. We can get a pretty good estimate of the field use by us as a rec league and the field use by the general public when they come in and rent them.
I just ask, because that always seems to be the strain, is the city's needs over the competitive teams. That always seems to be the scheduling strain, so.
Our Parks Master Plan says the priority for Smithville will be first, recreation for our residents, and then competitive will be second.
And I don't disagree. That is one of the biggest, and every community handles it differently. Some small towns handle it like we do, and some small towns contract it. Some big towns contract it with local agencies. It kind of depends on, the preference of the group. We started down this path, like I said, in 2015 at the direction pushing from a couple of aldermen related to some baseball, softball issues that moved us down this way. It was right around the same time we were doing the Parks Master Plan, and I think that also informed the Parks Master Plan. There was a lot of comments initially at the beginning of the process on that subject, and I think Alderman Arnold was on some of those, and one of the concerns or issues that we talked about was from an economic development standpoint, eventually getting to the point where we've got a complex that we can use as an economic driver, bring people to our community. And that was part of the separation. I think the Parks Master Plan Subcommittee ultimately realized the cost of those, and what would need to happen for what we have offerings of, may be very well that we separate the two, and when we get into the financial scenario, do the soccer complex or the baseball, softball complex as a driver for bringing people to the community. You see Olathe and all the other.
Yeah, but they also have Park and Rec districts that have a separate taxing entity as well, that would have to be passed.
Yeah, and ultimately, I mean, I think the communication at that time was not a taxing entity scenario. It's similar to Blue Springs or similar to Olathe parks or any of the communities that have these big multi-field parks and have every weekend soccer everywhere, or every weekend baseball, softball everywhere, and packed in with literally thousands of parents and their kids to play in the stuff.
So recognizing the hour, and we could probably go through this list, but knowing that, could you maybe provide a bit of a summary
Sure.
on this and include that maybe as
Yeah.
part of
Yeah, send it out.
the board package?
Suggestions that you think the board can take to fix these issues?
Because that's one of the big questions I have for these going forward is,
Sure.
I've heard a good bit of, well, the board needs to make that decision, or it's a policy issue. What policy issues do you have, and do you have a recommendation? Kind of like the water billing issue before, Well, how can we fix it? I do have one question, unrelated to that. What all goes into the mowing budget, and are we really spent 27% of our mowing budget already for the year?
Doubt it. Doubt
It's
it.
probably so the mowing budget is going to contain part salaries and benefits, and it's not prorated to only charge that during the April through October months. So some of those salaries are already hitting mowing.
Okay.
Anything else for Brett? Brett, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Made by Alderman Moore, seconded by Alderman Arnold. All in favor, say aye. Work at 6 in the morning. Please stand adjourned.
Yeah.